All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the 1% in Health. Got myself, Sabe, Clarissa, and Nash here.
Hey, guys.
All right, we've had a busy couple of weeks. Clarissa's had a very busy couple of weeks. Clarissa, what'd you do here? What happened? Results?
Oh man, I was so sad to miss last week. So thanks for being honorable with that, like me missing. Competed in the Mrs. Utah pageant last Friday and Saturday, and I did super well. I took first runner up, and I got best smile and best costume. So
Awesome.
That's awesome.
I did a lot better than I did the year before, and that's actually all I could ask for. I'm really proud of myself.
And we're gonna dive into it next week and do a 20-30 minute podcast on.
It'll be so much fun to talk about.
Yeah. Awesome. Nash, we've had an interesting week peddling art and getting your story out there and your art. You've been called Picasso with a few people, and it's been fun and interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. Yeah. So yeah, it's been good. I have no complaints. So
all right. So before we start, we're gonna go over my story today, which I'm not looking forward to that much, but we'll see how it goes. This will be the first time I've shared my story in person on a in a setting like this. So I can see how you guys felt in your own podcast, the anxiety that came with that. But before we go into it, again, pay attention to trigger warnings. There are comments and discussions that we'll have and topics that will trigger. And also, we are not professionals. We live with conditions. We are patients. We're peers. And if you need professional help, please seek a professional. All right. So my story, right?
Yes.
Go for it.
All right. So I just recently finished a book called Unboiling the Frog. And Clarissa, that's how I met Clarissa. Her sister-in-law is editing the book and also publishing it. It will be live here within the week, max 2 weeks. It's going to be on all outlets. Artwork is done. We took out just one little section today, and that will be completed today by the editor, Clarissa's sister-in-law. And I'm excited. I'm excited that it took me, literally, I started that book during the height of addiction. I was trying to avoid doing harmful things in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep. And I started writing a lot of memories from my childhood, and I wrote it online with I was chatting with somebody, and it was the only way I could pay attention and write my stories with a dialogue with somebody else. And I would write it in poem fashion. It was like these weird thoughts and memories that I had. And I would put them in a poem almost as if I was songwriting, and I would message, and then that person would respond. And I captured it every night, put it in a Word document. And I did that over the course of like 6 months. And I was able to put all of my memories, childhood memories, into a poem fashion.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. I think maybe it's one of the first books to be written that way.
That is so cool.
Where I was chatting with somebody. So those were just memories. And then my mother passed, Julia Anderson passed in 2018. And just a few weeks after she passed from a heart attack, suddenly, which was traumatic, and I'll talk about it later, we found her journal on her computer. And I thought, it was hard to read, and it's all in the book. So I combined her journal entry. She wrote it from early marriage on all the way up to 2012, and missed a lot of the drama that went on from 2012 to 2018 up until her death. And so I thought I would finish her story and our family story. Which is
it's okay. Take your time.
Yeah, it's the this is what I didn't want to happen on the podcast. It's a powerful story. My mom,
Yeah.
and that's why I do 80% of what I do
Mm.
is to talk about the wonderful women in my life and the support that I've had through life for my bipolar, my addiction, my bad decisions, our families' ups and downs. And my mom took the brunt of most of that and was a hero. So I finished the book. It took me another 5 years to take it from poem format and then take her story and interweave that. And your sister Elizabeth did an amazing job helping me put that all together, get it
It
to
is
be
beautifully
a lot
put
more,
together.
yeah, a lot more legible, and how she put my mom's story and mine together to me and to our family is a treasure. So,
I have a question.
Yeah,
So are you like your mom?
I am. I have my mom's a left brain person. If I was to categorize her, and my dad's right brain. I kind of
No, I
sit in
didn't
the
ask
middle.
left or right. I
Yeah,
said, are you like your
yeah.
mom?
I'm a half. I'm half. I'm half my mom and half my father.
Okay.
There's a nice little beam of light coming through.
It's beautiful.
That's a good thing. I see.
We
that
haven't
now.
seen the
Wow.
sun where we're at for a
Yep.
long time.
That is very cool.
That's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
So my story, and it's I've wondered a lot about how to start my story and talk about my story because in the book it really starts with a journey from southern Utah, central Utah, Richfield, Utah to Reston, Virginia, back in 1981, and I was 7 years old. We grew up. Our father struggled with alcoholism, and we knew that early on. My mom dealt with it early on in her marriage, and the first 7 years were there was a lot of fighting in the house, a lot of screaming at each other with my parents, and there were 4 boys at the time. I've got 4 brothers now, and a half sister, which we didn't know about until a lot later in life. But at that time, the family dynamics were very tough. My mom was, paying the bills, and my dad was starting businesses and being an entrepreneur, and drinking got in the way of everything. And my mom wanted a better life for her family, so she decided one day in 1981, around November December timeframe, to pack up her family, leave everything. She had $2,000 in the bank. She really didn't know where she was going. She had a friend, Parvene, who she went to, who she was in Utah State with as a college friend. They met there, and Parvene went back to the Washington, D.C. area, and she was a beacon of light to my mom and telling her to come that way. So my mom picked the East Coast. And what's interesting is Route 70, Highway 70, whatever it's called, goes all the way from 15, passes Richfield, hooks up with 15, and ends there. So really, Richfield's one of the bigger cities where Route 70 ends.
Yeah.
And then it goes all the way to Baltimore and 30 minutes from Reston, Virginia. So it was kind of this path for us to get on Route 70 and go all the way to the Washington, D.C. area. And we ended up in Reston, Virginia, which is a wonderful place. So in 1981, she packed up her 4 boys and she left her husband. And it's all in the book, the journey, and her grandfather, or her father, my grandfather, helped drive a truck while she drove a car, and all of us boys packed. We came home from school. She didn't tell us until we got home from school, and we got home from school. My dad eventually came. A big fight broke out, and I was hiding in the closet because I didn't want to go. I actually was a daddy's boy. I wore cowboy hat, shot BB guns, and wore chaps and boots. And my dad was a cowboy, and I kind of always sided with him, which even into my late teens and 20s, I always gave my mother a hard time for leaving him and putting him in the predicament that he was in, and which I'm sure was very hard for her, taking blame for those actions. But I was hiding in the closet. My mom came and found me and took me out of the closet, put me in the truck. There's a little funny story where my one brother, Regan, would try to, she'd put his bike in the U-Haul and he would go down and grab it. It was either he took it out or he kept putting it in. But he wasn't, he was 5 years old. I was 7 years old. He didn't really know what was going on. And then Justin was 12, who was probably devastated. He was in the height of his baseball and football, and he had a bunch of friends. So it was a shock when we came home from school, got in the truck. Grandpa was there. Dad came home fighting, asking why, it was very traumatic. I'm a crybaby.
Welcome to being human. It's all right.
Yeah, I can usually talk about these things without. I've told this story many times and I've never been emotional. So this is new.
I guarantee you there are a lot of kids and people out there who felt like you have.
Yeah.
You're helping them.
Yep. So got in the truck. She stopped along the way in hotels. She had lunches all made. It was a 3-day trip. So she had food planned. She had $2,000 in the bank. And we stayed in hotels, which I'm sure she really couldn't afford. And again, she had no job on the other side. All she had was a friend and hope that it was going to be a better life for her family. And we made the trek, showed up, and I think it was within a few days we were in school. She found a place to live. She started babysitting for money, and she was figuring life out. She did have a college degree. She was a realtor. She also had she did Shackley, a multi-level marketing company back then when there was Amway and Shackley, kind of the first two multi-level marketing companies. And she had a little bit of revenue there, and she was all through her life was a realtor. So she had some ideas of what to do, and she was a teacher. And so she was trying to get into education, but she babysat other kids in the neighborhood and in the surrounding areas to make ends meet and make rent. So that journey was the catalyst and foundation to progress. And as whenever I fear anything in life or have excuses, guys, I don't know if I want to push this.
Sure you
Such
do.
a baby. Whenever I look at what that critical move and her being a pioneer as a single mother, she was married, but she took a single mother leap with 4 boys, $2,000 in the bank, and moved across the country. I have no excuses in life. Starting businesses and doing new things and progressing. I have an amazing example, and I've used that. In overcoming addiction, conquering, I wouldn't say conquering, but getting bipolar in check, making career decisions, taking a leap of faith, getting married young, having kids young. That one single event is crucial. And everybody has to make that step in life, no matter who you are or what you've been through. There's always going to be a time, and it could be daily, it could be weekly, it could be monthly, once a year, once a life. So we all have to make a decision to change or stay in our cycles. and she
Yeah.
thought that we could get better help for my dad's alcoholism on the East Coast, that there were more resources. And my dad did follow. He got on a plane and followed. And over the next few years,
I have a
he
question really quick.
Yeah, yeah.
What year was this?
So that was 1981, and then we went.
Right.
It was December 1981. A plane just hit a bridge in Washington D.C. and took out part of a bridge, and it was. I'll never forget that. And so we started school right after Christmas break in 1982. So
So your mom moved
there's
out there right before Christmas, or was it after
yes,
Christmas?
it was during
Yeah.
that break. It was Christmas break. We were in between school. My mom was all
I
about
mean, that's
education.
hugely courageous. I mean, packing up, moving across I mean, there probably, I don't know how many single women there were back then. And not to mention your mom was an LDS woman too, correct?
Yeah, she
So
got
that's even a bigger deal.
Yeah, she got a lot of flack for what the decision she made, and also would always kind of be back then. Women in our faith were mothers and not career women.
Yeah, but even
then,
then, here's what I'd say to that. Good on your mom. Shame on
amazing.
people who look down upon her. She was doing
Amazing.
what she thought was best for her family and her children. That's what
Yep.
any good mother would do. And talk about a leap of faith. Extraordinary. Right before the holidays, going out there, not having much money, not knowing anybody, no job, Christmas coming up. Everybody should take their
Crazy.
hat off to your mom, literally.
Yeah, I've got a music video called Black Rose on YouTube that shows a cartoon drawing of the whole event of her packing up and moving. It's special, and
Okay. Wow.
so
Go on. I'm sorry. I'm listening.
no,
I can
please
vouch
ask
for that
questions.
because I've seen that music video. It's beautiful. It is great artwork.
All your music videos are great. Let's be real about it. There's nothing that's bad.
Thanks.
So, Sabe, did your mom expect your father to follow?
Yes, he said he would. I believe a lot of my memory and details. It's amazing how bad my memory is, and details are vague, and that's why I wrote the book, so I could research and really dig in and get the dates and stories and intentions and all those details out, because I'm sure I'll say wrong things. But my dad did follow. He did. He was sober throughout his life various times, and they were great times. And my father's a wonderful man with a big heart, but alcoholism has destroyed his businesses, his personal lives, and now he is serving life in prison due to alcohol and bad choices. So, but there was a moment early on where he promised he would be sober, and she'd always give him hope, and we look back at it. It's a lot of enabling and having hope and enabling and being caught in a vicious cycle of lies and what you deal with with alcoholism, with addiction.
Right.
So,
right.
but going from elementary school, we went through a few. She got into her career into education and did some awesome things. As we went through elementary school, there were moments of sobriety. There were still lots of fights. There were a lot of traumatic experiences, that maybe I can get into on another podcast or talk about it. But I kind of joke that we were little redneck cowboys, kind of coming from Utah to a very diverse Western Virginia is a melting pot of religions and cultures, and it's an awesome place to grow up for us. And here we are, little cowboys wearing cowboy boots and hats, and I'm sure I had an accent or something. And we had never been around a diverse area, and so we all were into sports. And so elementary school was full of basketball and football, and we were the athletics were at a high level. And so we all kind of excelled in athletics. And school was kind of always a struggle for me. And then me being a daddy's boy, I always wanted my dad around. And so when we had to send him off to rehab or, he got kicked out of the house, he'd have the police called on him. Those were hard times. Because he is such a kind and gentle man. And I have that empathy bug in me. It was hard. It was a traumatic experience seeing him being taken out by the police, doing a intervention in places where I didn't want to be, and confronting the demons and the monsters when somebody's drunk and you're trying to get them to go to rehab, and the yelling and fighting that goes on, and this would go on at least every other year, every third year. There'd be maybe 6 months of sobriety throughout the 80s, and it got better in the 90s. But the 80s were very traumatic for our family. My brother was 12 to age 16, so he was going through middle school and high school during traumatic years, and he was kind of filling in as dad, and he's done an amazing.
I have a question. So, what was your dad like when he drank? Sometimes people are
he was
ugly, they're
passive-aggressive.
violent.
He was passive aggressive. Yeah,
Okay.
he was emotionally abusive with my mom, but he was nice to us, and he hid it, right. So it was in vodka bottles and Sprite bottles. It was never in front of us, so he'd always deny. I've only heard my dad ever say once he drank. He's only admitted he drank once. So he would hide and be playful with us and passive aggressive. There would be some snide comments, but at night when my mom would question him and corner him, we'd hear the fighting. He'd be aggressive with his words, and not too physical. I think there were some instances, but my mom was also physical with him a few times. She lost it a few times. But it was for us, it was a passive aggressive.
Was that difficult for you guys to understand, seeing the good side and then that hard side, and not knowing which one was maybe the truth?
I think it was different for each boy. Some sided with
that's
my
a good
mother,
thing to point out too.
Yeah.
Is that we all view traumatic experiences like that in such different ways due to, who we're connected to more and who we gravitate to more, plus our genetic makeup. And that's a good point to bring out.
Some of my brothers have already said goodbye to my father and won't ever talk to him again for the rest of life, that's how they want to do it. I still talk to him once a week. He calls me from prison and we talk. I have capacity emotionally to do that. Others don't. And, so in fact, there's two of us that talk to him. And then I don't know the year my youngest brother was born, but he's 13 years, I think 13 years behind me. So there ended up being 5 boys. So they did have Adam, our youngest boy, in Virginia, who's amazing. And he's been through his own addiction cycles as well. So yeah, some of us went the path of, later on in life through addiction ourselves, and others didn't. So it was kind of interesting to see who viewed which parent in which light and how traumatic they took it on. Some compartmentalize it and stuff it down and just don't deal with it. And then you have me who wore it on my sleeves. And
so at this age, were you like experimenting? Oh, the light went off. It's going to get good.
You're good. Keep going.
So were you experimenting with anything, drugs, alcohol? I mean, I asked at a young age. My parents went through a divorce. I mean, I feel for you. I was starting to dabble in alcohol at 14, 15. So, I mean, where was this taking you?
Yeah. So elementary school was good. I was just surviving. I was loving sports. I thrived at basketball. I was on the select basketball teams. I was on the A football teams. I was doing well that way. Always struggled with school. I was probably very ADD, undiagnosed, and just didn't like schoolwork. I always had an interest in girls, like fascinated with having girlfriends and like over the top. And but as far as drugs, alcohol, and addiction, all that stuff I started to experiment with that in high school. So elementary school, 7th and 8th grade was more about sports and girls for me. I guess I was maybe a normal boy. I don't know. I don't think I was normal, but
Yeah, I think you're normal.
drug.
Yeah.
But going through middle school, the struggles were getting a little better. My dad was starting to get sober. By the time I hit high school, is when some of his best years. And I always tell people that be very cognizant and appreciate the times. If you're in a family situation like this, appreciate the times you have when there's sobriety. Appreciate the times when things are going well. Because if I look over the course of I'm almost 49 here. Last 49 years, there's under 10 years where either I was sober or my dad was sober together. So that's not a lot of years that we have been able to really form a lot of relationship and have healthy environments. But those 4 years in high school were special. I excelled in sports. I never played quarterback before, but because my brother played varsity quarterback for a couple of years, they gave me a chance as a freshman to be the freshman quarterback, and we went undefeated that year. And
That's awesome.
they had me dress varsity as a freshman, so I was this little like 14, 15-year-old kid dressing varsity as a freshman, and they told me I could have the chance at having the starting position as a sophomore. Playing varsity football, and that came around, and I didn't start the first game that sophomore year. There was somebody in front of me, and as the game went on, they put me in, and I started for the remainder of that year, and then was a 3-year varsity quarterback on the team. So sports came easy. It was an awesome experience for me. It kept my confidence. A lot of people that know me from that time, they know me as the quarterback, and they didn't know a lot of the struggles that my family is going through. In fact, all 5 of my brothers were quarterbacks. My dad was a quarterback in high school when he went to a high school that had football. My mom was the powder puff quarterback. And then my older brother played for a couple of years. I was a 3-year varsity starter, and then my brother Regan under me started as a quarterback for the same high school, and then Jacob under Regan started as a varsity quarterback for the same high school, and then my youngest brother who came, he only went his freshman year to South Lakes High School in Reston, Virginia, and he was a quarterback as well, but he switched schools and he took a different path. But we were all quarterbacks, and it was our life. We trained all year. I would run 5 miles a day all summer long. I'd work out. I was very extreme about it. I wanted to be as good as my older brother, who went and played on at BYU. My brother was behind. He was played at BYU when Ty Detmer was there, and he was on the squad as a quarterback there before he left on his mission, which was interesting. When he came back from his mission, he kind of showed us how only a certain percentage of quarterbacks actually make money as a career, and probably knowing that we were either undersized or weren't going to be professional quarterbacks, he kind of helped us make sense financially of our careers and football, because we were so obsessed about it. He put some perspective in it. He actually had like some type of spreadsheet back then that showed how we weren't going to make money. So, but yeah, football was a big part of our life. Basketball was a big part of our life. I was extreme in dating in high school. I always had to have a girlfriend, kind of like Clarissa's story. She was, I'd bounce. I did have a long time girlfriend for a bit there, and I was an idiot. I was an idiot kid. I had a pedestal being the varsity quarterback at a young age. and I guess I took advantage of it. It just kind of, I was able to have a lot of privilege in that position, and I'm not proud of who I was in high school, especially the conflict of being LDS and Mormon, and trying to be cool quarterback, whatever that is. I didn't do very well with my little pedestal I had, and I could have been a better person. I could have been more solid. I was not faithful to girlfriends. I dated a lot of girls. I dated girls from other schools, and that's kind of when alcohol and marijuana and other, well, that's about it. Marijuana was actually my senior year. I was just drinking on weekends during high school, and then I would go pass the sacrament for church. I was a hypocrite. I was a double standard religious person, and I had two lives. I had my dark side. I had trauma and experience. I didn't know I was ADD. I had bouts of depression. I would hit myself a lot like Clarissa's story. I never got into cutting, but I'd smash my head with my fist. I had migraines. I didn't sleep well. I'd do school all day. I would go to football practice or basketball practice, and then I'd talk to my girlfriend until the wee hours of the night, not really ever doing homework. And I'd get lots of headaches. I was off schedule. I was always tired, moody. I was having little bouts of depression, but the thing I remember the most was when I'd either have a headache or my mom would ground me. My mom was very stern with me. She's trying to keep me on the path. She probably saw a lot of my nature in my dad. So she was trying to keep me on the railroad to success. And she eventually took my Saturday nights away, so I couldn't go out on Saturday nights. She'd give me one night a week, and you don't do that to me. I had a major attitude. I was varsity quarterback. I had an ego. I was probably narcissistic. And taking a night away to hang out with my friends was devastating to me. So I always had animosity towards my mom. My mom did everything for me and gave me that. She gave me that foundation, and here I was disrespecting her. I made her cry one night when I complained about her food, when we barely had food in our house. She made us hot breakfasts every morning. We'd wake up at 5:30 or 5 and be out the door at 5:30 to go to early morning seminary before school started. She'd always have a hot meal for us. She'd read scriptures to us every morning. And I had an attitude, and I didn't like her. She disciplined me, and she wasn't home when I got home from school all through growing up.
I think that's fair of any teenager.
Yeah,
it is. Guess what? Parents need to realize they're not their best friend. They're their parents, and you're not going to like your parents, and it's all right. Your mom forgave you. She loved you.
Yeah.
There's nothing you couldn't do. There's nothing you couldn't do that her love would not cover, literally.
Right.
I mean, even today. And so,
go ahead. I also think we need to point out, like, brain development wise, our emotions are not fully developed as teens. So
no, hell no.
In hindsight, when we look back, I think there's always things that we think we can do better. But in all reality, it's possible our brain development couldn't have even handled that as that. And so there are things that are normal teens. But what I love what you're saying is that there were extra things on top of that as you look back, you clue into I was having issues here and here and here.
Yeah. I had a real problem with her, and she's put up with so much in her life, and she kind of emotionally was tapped out a lot of the times, even my wife and others that, when we talk about my mom, if she had any, bad things, she was emotionally not connected to sometimes, and she had to play single mom. She had to pay, she always paid the bills. She was the month to
Mhm.
month. She had to get us up, get us off school. We were 5 Eagle Scouts. She got us our Eagle Scouts. She got us on five.
Wow.
She got us on 5 missions. She had 5 football players, 5 basketball players. She had like 5 games to go on Saturday. And my dad was there, and he really supported my football during my high school years, and he would show up as well. So there were a lot of good years and a lot of good things. But she took the brunt financially. She took the brunt emotionally. She always had the stable job while my dad was being an entrepreneur, and my dad had a lot of success in his life, and he's amazing success, but it'd always be ruined with alcohol. But
I'm curious as to how you were introduced to alcohol during these really good years, like what you look back and deem as good years.
This.
I used to. So one incident, I this is kind of a shock, but um, 2 or 3 neighborhood boys and I went and broke into a house in the neighborhood, and we were looking for fireworks under a bed because he was bragging about his fireworks, and we wanted fireworks, and we broke in his house, got the fireworks. We found a checkbook, took the checkbook, trashed
How
the house.
old were you? First of all,
This
how
was
old were you?
I was 12.
Okay, you're 12. Okay.
So I'm 12. We trash the house. We pour chocolate syrup all over. We turn over the furniture. Just it turns into like a mob setting with like 4 boys in there. And we go to the bank a week later, forge checks. We get a couple $100 out of the bank. There's like 3 of us. We repeat it over a couple of months. It's like robbing a bank as kids, right? I mean, forfeiting checks, and 12 years old.
Right.
One of us is like 14 years old, and 14 or 15. The other, I was 12 at the time. Anyways, police knock on my door one day, and they had a sketch of me with braces, and I'm like, well, that's not me. I don't have braces. And but one of the other kids did, so I knew we were in trouble. So anyways, we get in trouble. They take us down to the police station. They put us in jail for a couple hours. They take our fingerprints. I thought I was going to be put into juvie for the rest of my years, but this amazing Christian lady whose house we broke into forgave us, and she was okay with like 90 days of cleaning up her house and yard, and gave us that probation, and we didn't go to juvie school.
Wow.
And like there's so many tender mercies in my life that are incredible. Like, I don't know how I'm not locked up and dead, to be honest with you. And we won't be able to get into it all this podcast because I'm a crybaby on this one.
It's called grace. We all got
Yeah.
it, believe me.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were lots of bad moments for me. I definitely had a double life. I was excelling. In church. I probably put on a good face at church. I put on a good face with the athletic side of me. But I definitely had a dark side. We were setting fires in woods. There was 3 different occasions where fire department had to come and put out fires that I started with friends, like big fires, like burn down woods and homes type things.
Was it just the excitement?
And getting back, getting back to that,
yeah,
it's getting back to Nash's question, actually, like how did the alcohol start? And I was selling alcohol to my friends. So I would steal my dad's alcohol, take it out of, we'd find it, and he's not going to say anything to me. Hey, who took my alcohol, right? So I could, if I would go search the house, and I'd find little gold mines, buried behind pillows and closets. And then he started getting smarter about it. Would put it in with the Sprite, so it looked like a Sprite, but that didn't last long because there wasn't a lot of food in our house in the means of snacks and soda. So if there's a Sprite bottle, even if it's half open, you're going to try it. So we'd get sour tastes of Sprite mixed with vodka, right? But I would sell it to kids in the neighborhood. We'd put it in tennis balls, light it on fire, and throw down the road. We blew up all kinds of stuff with fireworks. I mean, I was
God, I love you. That's hilarious. Really, think about it. Teenage boys are like, shit, I would do that. I'd do that.
Yeah, I mean, we were rough playing football, tackle football with no pads on the golf course. We'd play in people's yards. We'd play in the streets. We were rough at basketball. My mom had a lot to deal with, and
it sounds like
I was rough. I have one brother who we still don't know if he's ever done anything wrong in life. My older brother was a good kid. My Regan was solid. Adam and I were maybe the two rebellious ones, but Adam's still a really good kid. I had issues. Something was wrong with me because I took it to another level, and
Just
that's
kind of
part of
manic.
I didn't know at the time. I had privilege. I had ego. I had something dark going on inside of me. I I don't know. I got away with stuff. So I got braver and braver as things went on. But the alcohol, I didn't really start doing it by myself, Nash, to answer your question. I would do it at a party on the weekends, and be immoral. I think it
Well, of
was
course you
easier for
would.
me. I think it was
People love to
easier for
drink
me
in
to
a
be,
social setting. You're not going
yeah,
to sit there and get pounded by yourself. You're going to go hang
yeah,
out with all your friends. Don't
yeah.
forget,
So
you
I
were a
think it's,
good-looking guy too.
yeah,
So weren't
yeah.
you? See,
I guess I was.
of course you
um,
were. You're freaking the
so,
all-American boy. You're like carved out of cream cheese, dude. I mean,
stop.
think about it. No, it's true.
Jeez.
I mean, you're a quarterback. You're everything, and you had the good life, and you still had these
I had
issues.
privilege. I had
Yeah.
privilege, but
See?
I definitely had a dark side, and that dark side very few
Yeah.
people saw.
Mhm.
And then the alcohol, I would become definitely manic. And I remember one time I was at my girlfriend's house and it was late. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I gotta go home. And I don't think we were drinking though that night. I was sober. Um, I went home and I was late and I had to come up with an excuse to where I was and why I was late. So I scratched my skin all up. I made myself bleed. I tore my shirt. I like I put some type of stain on my clothes, for like road gravel or
Road rash.
something,
Yeah.
road rash, and went. I put on this whole theatric. Went into the house crying. I crashed. I got hit by a car. I think I even dented my bike. Um, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, come in! What happened?" You know, they took care of me. They took care of my road rash, blood from my arm, whatever. However I scratched myself, and then they called the police the next morning.
I was going to say, did they believe you?
They did. I put on a good show,
Wow,
and
you must
my
have been a
mom called
great
the
actor.
police. The police came the next morning, and I gave the account that I got hit on this road, and that it was a hit and run, and so they told me to go to the hospital and get checked out. And I don't know why this happened, but the doctor told me I had a concussion at the hospital. So it all checked
Whoa.
out. I got away with it. I had a concussion and I got 2 or 3 days out of school. So
And a crap ton of sympathy too.
I had fun with my girlfriend. I got home late and I got a lot of sympathy. I had a concussion. Everybody felt sorry for me. So I was starting to figure how I could get away with stuff in life and manipulate and lie and be bad, and then also have this good side to me that everybody expected or wanted out of me.
You know,
But
and
yeah,
I have to insert here, when you are held tight in discipline from parents, with certain conditions, like kind of what we have saved, like that feels like freedom because we're so locked up here a lot of the times that those actions feel very freeing.
yeah,
We feel like we're in control of what we're not in control of most of the
yeah,
time.
I agree with that.
So I have to put that
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, thanks.
Which is ironic for me because I could never get away with that. If I went and told my family I got hit by a car, they would never believe me. I mean, just in
Yeah,
the different worlds we live in, they'd be
Right.
like,
But the consequences of telling the truth, the fear of that is greater than the
"Oh yeah, if I
consequences
was
of,
out till 2 p.m.
yeah.
or
well,
2 a.m., yeah,
I
my mother
I
would have
had
beat
I had
me."
I had to lie about what I was doing. I didn't want to tell my mom I was with the girl. She knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know, here I am passing sacrament on Sundays and trying to be a Mormon kid. I go to seminary every morning. I graduated early morning seminary. I slept most of the time. Um, I would make out with a girl after seminary before school. She had a boyfriend. I had a girlfriend. I mean, I was a bad kid. That's
Dude,
seminary.
you're a
What's
player.
wrong?
You were a player back
What?
then.
Yeah, I was. It was a bad kid. I had two sides, and not a lot
Did
of people
that
know
have to
these
do
two sides.
with how you grew up, or did that have to do with your, bipolar happening?
I didn't know I had bipolar until I was like 24, 25, and I don't
Right,
think I
but
had a
just in
lot of.
hindsight.
Yeah, I'm hoping there are excuses. I'm not going to justify what I did, and I'm not going to. I was a bad kid, and I was a good kid. I had multiple things going on, good
Right.
and bad. I think I had more depression and ADD, and just curiosity, and I was extreme. I was practicing how to be bipolar. But yeah,
Well,
I hope the issues and the trauma and the me experimenting with alcohol at an early age, I'm hoping that's what led to a lot of my bad behavior. But I don't excuse it. I'm not. I'll never tell anybody that sin or whatever you want to call it or bad decisions isn't fun, because we wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun.
Right,
So,
right.
and I had a lot of fun doing those things, and I'm not going to excuse it. That's why I don't excuse it or put it on bipolar, depression, or drug abuse. When you have a pedestal and you have opportunities and you make bad decisions, it's fun. I
So
hate to say that, but it is.
when I was delving through my past with a mentor, we talked about a building that was built on a landfill. And this building is so gorgeous. And he asked me, he said, just because there's garbage underneath, old cars to build up the land to build this building on, do we need to go dredge up those old cars? Because what would that do to the building? And he said,
Mhm.
as we change, as we get older, we take what we experienced and we have the
Yes.
opportunity to change that landfill into something beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think of that often when my past sometimes comes to haunt me. I think about that my building, I am trying to build a building that is beautiful now.
Yeah, I wouldn't take back anything. I don't regret anything. I had to go through extreme measures to get to where I am today. Um, and that's why I also don't excuse it. I appreciate the good, the bad, the ugly. I talk about it. That's
Yeah.
why I wrote the book. I'm very open and honest about my infidelities and my. Later in life, I get excommunicated from the church. I was a good missionary, and maybe we'll talk about that in the next episode. But I felt like I served a solid mission, and I've been great at being a father and a grandfather and brother and a son at times, but I've also been a effing nightmare. And
but who
yeah,
hasn't?
right.
Nobody's
I don't,
perfect.
and I wouldn't
And I
change it
think you're
because
just an average teenage kid.
yeah,
Every day your day was changing and you're kind of jumping into the bag and seeing what gets shaken up today, you know?
yeah,
And once again, but look where you are now, you know?
yeah.
You're an amazing father, grandfather, artist. Yeah, I think
Well,
you've done
thank you for
well.
that. There's a step in 12 steps that is reconciling with people in the past. And it was one of the steps my dad would always get caught on and wouldn't get to the next level. He's never really reconciled with family members, and maybe some, but a lot he hasn't. And going back to friends um, and saying sorry and making it right, even if they don't accept it and don't forgive you. I'm a
Mhm.
big proponent of getting past that step, and I've spent a lot of my adult life trying to reconnect and trying to expose who I was and what I did for the purpose of reconciling and being a better person and
Yeah.
showing whoever matters that you can change. The book is called
Absolutely.
Unboiling the Frog. Everybody always asks me, what was your turning point in life? We'll maybe get into this in the next episode. There was no turning point. There's just progress or not progress. You're either going backwards or going forward. And for me, it takes a lot of things at the same time going right for me to have momentum and push forward, especially with mental health.
Mm.
I've got to do a lot of things to stay on a good path. And high school was two different people. My mission, I was really one single person. And then early on in marriage, I started to become those two people again. And, we probably should talk another 5 or 10 minutes here and then end it and then get into another one. But yeah, high school for me it's such a formative time in people's life. And I kind of just blew through it with the with some depression, with self-abuse. I'll get into one more story and then probably end it there. But had a successful senior year for football. We went to semifinals in states and we lost there, but I was able to get um, third runner up in state as a third whatever it's called, all state third team for football. I was Channel 9 all met. Uh, our team was awesome. Had an amazing time. We only had 33 people on our team, and the schoolie rallied around it, and it was a fabulous time. And then it got really dark after football for me. I think depression really started to set in. The alcohol was becoming a problem on the weekends. My life was I was having to make some life decisions on where to go to college. I played my whole senior year football injured. I got injured my second week of football, and they told me football was over. Somebody ripped my shoulder in practice, and my stomach's growling. And so I was told not to play football for the remainder of the year, and I wouldn't have that. I said, just wrap up my shoulder. I kind of threw away college by making that decision. But I just wrapped my shoulder up every game and played out the rest of the year. We went on and won and went to states, and not a lot of people knew I was injured and hurt. I kind of hid it from everybody, which I'll talk about maybe next time. But that ruined that. I had letters from Penn State. I had letters from Vanderbilt. I had letters from East Carolina. I had letters from BYU. I had lots of Division II and Division III colleges writing me. They knew who my brother was. I was having a good year. And I was a little undersized. I was only 6 feet, which my wife argues I'm 5'11", 7/8". But on paper, I was 6 feet. Anyways, I was gravitating towards LDS schools. I don't think that made some people happy, and then colleges stopped writing me. So I went from this big pedestal of I'm going to a D1 college playing, college football, to knowing the reality that I couldn't really throw because my arm was injured, and it was injured really bad. And then the abuse of alcohol. My dad was in a good place at this time. He'd have signs up at the football game. He was arguing, sticking up what he thought. He pissed off a lot of coaches, and there were a bunch of parents that would make the coaches mad, and there was some conflict with the coaches and parents, which is sad, very sad. But my dad was very supportive of me. He would have big signs at the football game, and he really dove into football. He made a highlight tape for me to put in front of colleges, and so it was a good time. But my life was unraveling, all while I was wanting to serve a mission for our church. So here I am, immoral, losing the ability to play football from injury, doing alcohol. I think I started weed and marijuana in January of my senior year, really smoking it by myself and on weekends. And it was really, everything was kind of going dark for me. And especially when the colleges stopped writing me, and I came to a realization that I probably wasn't going to be able to play D1 football and have scholarships to football. I think that played a little role into my self-deprecation and my confidence.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and I hated school. I absolutely hated school. I wasn't good at it. I was so ADD. I didn't have patience to sit in school and listen. I really wanted to work. I loved computers back then. And so I would actually leave at noon right after football was over. I would leave at noon and I'd go work at an amazing company putting mainframe computers together. I'd put the whole computer together, all the boards and the nuts and bolts and the memory cards and the slots and the PCI slots and all. I learned how to It went dark on Clarissa again. But anyways, I would put all these computer components together and put them in a box and ship them around the world. It's when we had big mainframe computers. So I started a love for computers and working and making money because we always had it tough. We maybe had 1 or 2 pairs of shoes that we'd get for the year. We'd have maybe 5 shirts, a couple of jeans. I never really had extra money because things were tight. When my dad was working, he'd pitch in and help, and it got a little better there for a while. But I always had this fear that I didn't have money, and I always I'd be embarrassed that I didn't have the latest and greatest or the most expensive. I always wanted Gap shirts. I couldn't afford Gap shirts. I couldn't afford Guess. I couldn't afford the name brands. We'd shop at
What were you getting, Kmart or something?
well, it was like Burlington Coat Factory, which
Right,
is fine, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I wanted Gap. I wanted stuff from the mall, right? So that really, I wanted to work and make my own money and have my own money. So I was starting to make, I was like $8 an hour, which was pretty good back in 19.
That is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was putting computers together. That's where I started my love in computers. And I loved leaving school. I remember teachers, there was one teacher in particular that basically said, hey, if you just show up for class, you don't have to do the work. You don't have to do the test. I'll give you a C. So I'd get grades given to me, and then I couldn't wait to get out, and I would go and work. And then I would have a couple $100 in my pocket each week. So that I was buying my own marijuana. I was buying my own liquor. I was buying my own shirts. I had money to go on dates. I thought I was pretty cool. But I had definitely underlying issues with depression at that time. And my senior year was horrific. You think a star quarterback who could date, and I didn't even have a prom date. The girl I wanted to take couldn't go, and so I asked a girl last minute, and my prom was this. I smoked a bunch of weed before I got in the car. I drove inebriated to pick up my friend. We picked up his date. We went and picked up my date. And then I think we went to dinner, if I remember. I don't remember much of it because I was super high. And we started drinking, and we made it to the dance, I think. And I think I saw everybody in the room. And we went to the hotel. And I don't remember anything from that point on. Total blackout. I have no idea what went on that prom night. And so there was a lot of abuse with alcohol and weed. I was starting to do it I was smoking weed in the back of my house by myself. That's when I started to know that there was a problem, and I was starting to follow the patterns of my father. My father was sober. So again, here I was for 2 years of high school, not sober. He was sober. So I can't count those years as both of us being sober. And even though we had good moments, I can't count those years. So there's literally a handful of years that either he was not sober or I wasn't. Anyways,
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, this is 2023, it's the weed culture. So how much was weed back in the day? What did it cost you?
I don't remember. I don't.
You're making $8 an hour.
I know.
Come on. What did you pay for a gram, an ounce?
All I know is later on when I was a cocaine was, I know prices for that, but I don't know prices for anything else. I don't remember. So
you weren't spending like $50 a week on it?
Probably 30 to $50, I would imagine. And lots of reggae, I love rap and reggae and smoking weed by myself. I didn't.
So like Bob Marley and Toking?
They're more obscure artists than Bob Marley. I like some people.
Peter Tosh.
I had a friend that introduced me to some artists, deep Jamaican artists that were awesome. Barrington Levy, Supercat, some of those artists that no one really knows. And I loved it. I remember driving all the time high. I would stare at the road and I would put myself in danger, and I'd put many others in danger. I mean, that went on for years, even
So
in my
did you
marriage.
have peers that tried to help you make better choices?
No, no, I have good friends from high school. I you would think how do I say this? I think I made a lot of enemies. I was probably a jerk to a lot of people. I remember getting in
Mm.
fights with my best friends eventually, and I alienated myself. I don't know. I was very insecure at the same time. I was narcissistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
it
I
does.
think I was narcissistic. I had an ego, but I was very insecure, and I think like I wasn't. Kids never called me to go to the party. I had to show up or do it myself. I mean, people didn't want me around my senior year, even though I was considered whatever you want to put that pedestal star quarterback. People didn't invite me, so I hung out with friends that like to smoke weed and listen to music, and they were cool dudes. And those are the dudes I hung out with. I didn't hang out with a lot of athletes. Um, I wasn't hanging out with a lot of people from our high school my senior year. I was in a dark place and kind of a loner. And people are going to be shocked to hear that. Um, I couldn't go out on Saturday nights. I could only go out one week. So I learned to just do my weed and drinking or whatever I was doing by myself. And now that I think about it, that's probably why I loved when I was doing drugs in my marriage. That's why I love doing drugs by myself. Kind of got used to that.
Do you
And
think
I'm
your
a lot.
mom and dad knew you were doing this?
No, no. But
No.
that's what
You
I'm
hid it
coming
that
to. And
well?
there was one incident where it all came to head, and this is what's helped me diagnose myself bipolar and really know I have issues. So after that prom, that was such a bad prom night. I'm sorry, prom date. You know who you are. I'm so sorry for that night, and the disrespect. But uh, I was again with another girl, and we took a jacuzzi, and we drank grain alcohol, Everclear, right?
Cool.
We scavenged the
Yikes.
hutch of her parents, opened it up, and that's when I remember lots of times when we go in parents' liquor cabinets and we would take the liquor and then fill it up with water, right? So we drank a bunch of Everclear, took a jacuzzi, and I guess you're not supposed to jacuzzi when you drink Everclear because it makes you even
No, that's not a
more
good thing, but go on.
inebriated.
I
I
wouldn't know.
drove home. Yeah,
Oh, I
I
know, but
drove
yeah,
home.
that's not a good thing. Yeah.
I drove home drunk. Like I don't remember driving. What an idiot. And I had my pants on backwards. So I tried to sneak upstairs, and our house had 6 floors. It's a split level house. It was a
Oh, okay.
townhouse with split levels. So there were 6 floors, 5 staircases. And my bedroom was all the way at the top, and I had to pass my parents' house. So I go stumbling up past their bedroom, all the way up into my bedroom, and I sit down on the couch. My pants are on backwards, and my dad comes up and he goes, "You smell like alcohol." And I must have yelled or something, and I stood up and I started fighting with him. And
Mhm.
I was a strong kid. I was benching 300 pounds. I was an athlete. I was a violent athlete. I used to love to try to run people over. I loved to get in. I was a running quarterback and a throwing quarterback. So I learned how to take hits. I was used to hitting myself in the head. I'd bang my head on the walls when I had migraines. When my mom disciplined me, I'd hit myself. So I could take some blows, and I was in fights and usually won fights. Always had people stick up for me though and do my fights for me, which was cool. But anyways, my dad and I start fighting. My dad's strong. My dad was a high school wrestler. He's thick. He's got muscles. He's stronger than I mean, he probably was at that time, even still stronger than I was. So we start fighting, and I'm going psycho. And I'm talking about pulling out the gun and killing people. I knew there was a shotgun in the house. I was trying to figure out where it was, and he was holding me back, and I was punching holes in the wall. I remember punching about 4 or 5 holes in the drywall. I even punched through some closets. My mom woke up and called the police, and we go stumbling down these stairs. My dad's doing a good job keeping me under somewhat control. I do remember going for the shotgun though. I was crazy. And we get to the middle floor and we're just fighting it out, and the police come, and the police try to take control, and I run downstairs. I remember, it's funny because I don't remember details, but of like driving and a lot of details of high school and early age, but for some reason I remember standing on our flowered couch. Police are coming at me with batons, and I'm taking them out. I'm taking them out with my feet. I'm punching them. They thought I was on cocaine because of the strength I had and the psychosis I must have been in. But they called for backup. They eventually got control of me, and they beat the living hell out of me. They beat me with their sticks. They eventually put me on a board, a straitjacket, and a board, and tied me to the board and hauled me out to an ambulance. I remember telling them I was going to kill myself and I'm going to kill anybody that tries to touch me. I think I threatened the nurse I think she injected me with something, and I threatened her because she was shooting me with a needle or something. I was gone mentally. And of course, neighbors are up. This is like, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning. Ambulance, police cars, tons of police cars. They're I don't know. I don't know if it was 5 or 6 or 10 police officers, but they got a hold of me. Anyways, they recognized me and who I was or something, and decided to take me to the ward instead of jail. I assaulted police officers badly. I think because I was threatening suicide and I obviously was having a mental break, they decided to put me in the Fairfax ward. And I woke
How
up.
old were you?
I was almost 18.
Okay.
Almost 18. This was the last few weeks of school. This was just after prom.
Wow.
I think the times are right, but yeah, it was before school ended. They put me in a ward. I woke up in a white padded room. There was pads all over the room. There was padded floor, and I was in a straitjacket, and I couldn't move, and I was suffocating mentally. Eventually, they took me out of the straitjacket, and I looked into a mirror, and I couldn't even recognize myself, my face. I still have scars on my face from my face was puffy. It was cut up. I was beaten, and they left me there for 4 or 5 days in the ward. I did my best to convince them I wasn't crazy, because I didn't think I was. I thought I was just drunk on Everclear. I remember I couldn't go past a certain line in the hallway. I had to learn how to talk in groups. I was pissed off. I remember looking out. I have a lot of songs that I've written about this moment, and we lost Nash there. Convince the doctor to let me go, that I wasn't crazy, and I was able to do that. I was persuasive. He thought it was just a night that was alcohol induced.
Bad night. Yep.
But it was. I remember looking out of the window, and looking at people outside, and questioning if I was ever going to be normal. So it was a reality check to threaten my family, threaten my life, and be locked into a ward with who you thought were crazy people, and you weren't crazy. Everybody else crazy, not you. And I saw some people in pain in there, and lots of voices, and lots of delusions, and lots of depression, and people sitting on their beds all day long and not moving, catatonic. But I'm so grateful for that moment, because to be diagnosed bipolar, you usually have to go through some type of event or have a psychotic break for a psychiatrist to give you that diagnosis. And as much harm as I caused, and as much pain I must have caused my family, and this was hidden. No one ever knew about this in school. Only my family knew this, and maybe one or two neighbors. I was out of school the whole week, and then I went back, but there were no questions. We never talked about this. I never went to a therapist or psychiatrist afterwards. It disappeared. It was like, that was
Right.
a bad
Right.
night. It was a bad night. You were drunk. You went to the ward. Now time to get ready for your mission and get ready to try to walk on to football, onto Rick's football.
Yeah,
That time.
we'll discipline this out of you. Discipline is in like creating structure and routine and expectation.
I don't think anybody knew what to do. And they didn't
Yeah.
know I had two lives. They didn't know I was drinking. They didn't know I was smoking weed. Where did this psychotic break come from? Why is he showing up drunk I'm sure my mom was dealing with her own stuff, and again, my dad was good at this time, but they were working full-time jobs, and disciplining Sabe became kind of second nature to my mom. And so it was just interesting. I never did seek therapy or get a diagnosis or anything like that. It was just chalked up to a bad moment. But it did, and we'll talk about this later on, it did serve a huge purpose in getting properly diagnosed, and is a reminder to me to take care of myself and take care of my bipolar,
I love
because
that. Love
there
that.
is a monster in mental illness, and if you feed it, you end up taking your own life,
Yeah.
which I did later on, and we'll talk about that. So we'll end here with this story. Is that good?
Yeah, I just want to input like for everything that you have shared tonight, you have created a life intentionally to live better than your limitations via a label. And
Yeah,
from what I know of you, you have lived your life in doing better than what your natural body wants to do and your natural brain wants to do. And that says a lot about you.
I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
to all the listeners, sorry for all the triggers, but it's I want to be as real and emotional as possible and share the ugliness of mental illness and bipolar and addiction as much as I want to share the accomplishments of my life. I think it's it weighs just as heavy. Learning, my dad's always
Agree.
said, learn, do what I don't. He say I'm a perfect example of what not to do, and I always thought that was sad. Why should that be your model? Do what I don't do, right? So we'll end there. We'll pick this up in 2 weeks. We'll talk about your pageant next week, and then we'll get back to my story. And the other amazing person in my life is my wife.
I can't wait. Can't wait.
So sorry for all the emotion, guys, but I live my life very, very for a reason. Everything I do in business, everything I do with my family, taking my medications to stay away from illness, and living as healthy as I can is my whole purpose in life. And that's why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
That's why we're all sharing our stories and doing what we do. So I appreciate everybody listening, and we'll be at you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sabe.